This is Brother Moses Hill coming to you in living color. We're about to turn it up a notch and chop it up.
Turn me up!
We be going over time. We be going over time.
What them haters are saying. Tell me what you want.
We be going over time.
They gon' make me ride on this one, nigga.
We be going over
Get
time.
'em.
We be going over time. We be going over time. Take it. We be going over time. We be going over time. We be
Tell
going
me
over
what you
time.
want.
Take it. We be going over time.
Y'all gon' make me come out.
Chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it up.
What's going on, y'all? You know who it is and what it is. Once again, we are back with the final episode of the Brother Moses L documentary, part of the season finale here. I wanted to give you guys a little bit more insight to kind of how we got to present day Brother Moses L. And so I wanted to talk to you about, for me personally, I didn't want to rehash the incarceration because I feel like you become so much more than that. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to express the story behind the story. For those of you guys, I'll include the links to some of the interviews that was done with him. But what I want you guys to understand is, in my opinion, I felt like it was propagated. They put Brother Moses L in a suit, and they gave you guys the political version of him, but he never really truly got to tell his story from his eyes. And so I wanted to give you that opportunity too, because it's one thing when you're put on a show and you got politicians and people who were part of the incarceration, kind of standing there and overseeing it. And so I wanted you to be able to tell your story, and so going back to the last episode, Brother Moses L had talked about the fact of people smiling and why he gives back to the community. So with that being said, I'll let you take it from there, because I don't want to tell your story, but I want you the opportunity to truly express how that impacted your life, because I'll be honest. I had an artist the other day who I was supposed to work on doing some film work for him, and had me wait for 2 hours for him. And I was pissed off, and I'm like, you know what, like, I'm doing him a favor, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that was 2 hours. So to put it into perspective, we get mad over 30 minutes, we get mad over an hour, we get mad over 2 hours. But imagine being incarcerated for 28 years. We can't fathom what that really means to someone who was wrongly incarcerated. So with that being said,
I'm not here to talk. I want to listen. So,
I think I can honestly tell my story and my experience in a manner that will give clarity as well as real life emotions to my experience. And one of the first things I want to say is that it wasn't a pleasant experience, but it's an experience that I had to deal with. And there are people that I can name in brief that represented being angels alongside my journey and experience that kept me, and this is a term I use nowadays. I always say to a lot of people, I say, I took it out of The Wizard of Oz.
okay.
And I use the term, stay on the yellow brick road. I say that for a reason, because if you stay on the yellow brick road, like Dorothy was instructed to do, eventually Dorothy will get to see Oz, and after seeing Oz, she can go home. See? And our goal, we have to meet our goal. So to meet that goal, you got to stay on the yellow brick road, whatever it consists of. Because your idea and your purpose and your mission and your goal lies in you staying on that path. And what happened to Dorothy when she got off the path? Off the yellow brick road, where did she end up, her and the scarecrow? In the poppy field. Poppy field. What comes from poppy? Heron. You got to look at what the reservoirs is conveying, the hidden message, especially to the so-called black man, because he was the one that was uprooted and taken away from home. See?
That's deep.
Yeah. So that's me. And what I would like to articulate briefly is what I had to go through. You know, when Dorothy was taken away from home, she went through mental trauma. And there was a whole lot of drama and trauma in her life until she returned back home. You know, the same thing that occurred with me. When I went to prison for something that I didn't do, I mean, I used to sit back and literally say, man, I know good and well these people ain't locked me up for something I didn't do. They know I didn't do this. But you know what they did? Here's where this racism and discrimination come in against this here. Although they knew the truth, because the physical evidence that came back. Now, mind you now, they was charging me with sexual assault. According to the law, there's certain things you have to prove concerning sexual assault. First, you have to prove that the woman was sexually assaulted. You have to prove also, depending on what degree, third degree, second degree, if there was penetration involved. So see, in the case dealing with me, the victim said that the perpetrator had sex with her. So they have to prove that there was some intimate intercourse involved, right? And if it was, what was the evidence left behind that contact? There's only certain things that could be left behind, because when you have an intimate with this woman, say for instance, and she has pubic hair and you have pubic hair, y'all hairs are subject to get entangled. So they comb that victim's vagina to get hairs. They never did that in my case. And if they would have did it, they would have discovered that the hairs didn't belong to me.
Right.
And if they would have discovered that the hairs didn't belong to me, they would have had to do two things: drop the case, or now toss that evidence aside and say, we're going to prosecute him anyway. But how we going to prosecute him? We're going to make him think that we got evidence that links him to this assault. See, so they couldn't play me that way, although they tried. They did. And that's what they did. They came back. I said, man, these people know I didn't commit this crime. And they gave me an attorney, court-appointed attorney, who didn't have my best interest, because the only thing he ever talked about was plea deals. Every time I talked to him, well, they offering this plea. Man, I done told you I ain't committed this crime. How many times you gonna keep coming in here talking about a plea deal? I didn't commit this crime. I'm not pleading guilty to nothing. That was his whole interest. See, so here's the conspiracy now. Okay.
Hold that thought. So just to give you guys a little bit of context, if you guys haven't seen the Rod Player Rod episode, who was wrongly convicted as well, go back and watch that episode, because he touched on it as well too, and talking about misconduct. And so, taking these court appointed attorneys isn't always in the best interest, because they're not looking for truth. They're just looking for how do they get the win, how do they get the conviction. So
Absolutely. And then another thing to keep in mind, dealing with that point you just made, every time a prosecution win a case, see, they have these almost like brackets and classes and benefits and incentives. They get so many points, and then it improves, or it shapes it shapes their profession. It shapes their name. So if they get X amount of conviction,
Promotion.
This is how they get promoted.
Right.
Now, the public don't know that those convictions that they may have gotten, out of 20 of them, 18 of them was illegal.
Right. Right.
Only 2 of them was justified. But see, the way they would structure it, they'd make it appear like all 20 of them was legit. So he's entitled
Right.
now to run for this office, governor.
Yep.
And then he gonna run off of his record. See, so when we look at that, he's not concerned about the people he convicted, he's concerned about his career.
Right.
The same thing with these court-appointed attorneys, right? I'm only speaking things that I experienced and I done seen, and I saw it not just with me. It's in the penal system throughout the country. You know, you got people that's wrongly convicted still in prison.
Facts. Facts.
This is a fact, but the reason why a lot of them hasn't been released, either because they don't get the exposure, or they don't have the money to do it, so they have to sit in prison, although there's evidence that would show they're innocent. But because they don't have nobody that can put a spotlight, or nobody to invest no money, or nobody to come along and say, man, you know, the wrong that was done to you, you know, I see it, and I'm gonna take your case pro bono. See, if they don't run into situations like that, they're gonna still be sitting in the penitentiary.
Right.
The penal system is not concerned about their innocence. The
Right.
penal system is concerned about that bed that's being filled.
Exactly.
You know, like they say, you know, we did our job. Now you got to prove to us, this system who got you in here, you got to prove to us that you're innocent. Well, I took all those necessary avenues, but it was the officers of the court.
Yeah.
You know, they are the ones responsible for me still being here. Because if it was left up to me, if I had the legal means to represent myself or defend myself, do you think that I would have defended myself where I'd have had myself go to jail?
Right.
Nah.
Right.
This is all a game. So that's what I had to go through psychologically. You know, these are the things that I became exposed to. I said, man, these people, I had to literally tell some of them, I said, man, you crazy. I said, even though you police chief, even though you district attorney, you crazy. And they would look at me like, what, you calling me crazy? Yeah, I'm calling you crazy because you trying to make it seem like I'm crazy because you want me to accept pleading guilty to something I didn't do. You got to be
Right.
out of your mind.
Yeah.
But yet you holding this office. You're not holding this office based on your credentials and your personal experience to be that. You know, no, that's not the case, because if it was the case, I wouldn't be here making this argument and claim against you. You would have had enough sense to say, man, this man is innocent. But no, you ain't want to see that. First and foremost, you looking at the area I come from. At the time when I was arrested in Denver, East Denver, low class, throwaway. That's how they looked at that neighborhood. Minorities, which was a combination of Mexicans and brothers, but all of them on drugs, welfare, unemployed, and all those other, you know, bad features in those neighborhoods. So it's easy to go grab people out of areas like that and do what? Abuse them, lock them up, keep them locked up, give them the highest bail in the world, you know. So that's what I had to deal with. So psychologically, while incarcerated, I had to deal with intimidation. You know, the course of the judge, a lot of times when I went before certain proceedings, the judge would say, I would hear him say it to other individuals that went up before me. And some of the questions and statements that they would make, the judge would say, has anybody made any threats to you? You know what the defendant on trial or the one being examined would say? No. You don't say nothing like that. But see, he wasn't aware. Because anytime you are told by your attorney or any officer of the court, if you don't take this plea bargain, they're going to give you so and so. That's a threat.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But once again, you know, the individual in court is already intimidated anyway because he or she is a minority. They don't know nothing about the legal system. So the legal system intimidates them, coerces them. These things goes on. But it goes on because the people that's subject to that, see, they don't know no better. They don't know how the legal system functions. You know, there was a time when I didn't know, but after, you know, going through certain things, I said, oh, hell. But that became ammunition for me to put in my slingshot to fight, like David. You know, David had to knock Goliath down with one stone. And what was that stone? The stone of truth. See, I had to keep hitting him in the head with the truth. You know, hitting him in the head with, well, you saying I did this. What do the seamen say? Because I didn't really start focusing on the seamen until I seen a report that was done by the prosecution expert. And she lied and manipulated the testimony to make it seem like her testimony when she was testifying before the jury, that everything she said applied to me. See, my lawyer, who was there to represent and put on a defense, never challenged her testimony because he never hired an expert to rebut her, which left the door open for all her testimony to remain uncontested. You know, so the jury hearing that and seeing the defense not putting on any kind of rebuttal, oh, well, she must be telling the truth.
Wow.
You know. So when they get down to the physical evidence, what did she say? She said the semen detected on the vaginal swab contained the H antigen. Now, when you hear the word H antigen, what comes to mind?
I have no idea.
That's what I'm saying.
I have no.
This is what she was doing to the jury.
Wow.
Because nobody got up and explained her language. My lawyer didn't do it, which left it open for me to be prosecuted. So he was delivering me to them, to the state. Because what he don't defend becomes now
Evidence, yeah.
information and opportunity to the prosecution. So it's taken off of my side. Now everything being dumped over there with the prosecution look like he got a case.
Yeah.
He getting the help from my attorney.
So speaking of that, at the time the district attorney was Mitch Morsley.
Right.
Who was Mitch Morsley to you? Like, did you when this
He was a district attorney that came behind another district attorney that knew my case, and that district attorney named Bill Ritter. See, that was Mitch Morsley's boss at that time. Bill Ritter was there, but Bill Ritter, when he left out, he went to run for governor, which left Mitch Morsley stepping up in Bill Ritter's position as the head of the DA's office. So all he was doing was carrying on the works and the attitude that Bill Ritter had against me, because Bill Ritter wanted me to plead guilty.
Right, and you was like, nah, I'm not doing that.
He told me through this lawyer named Abraham Hutt that was representing me, another lawyer that he threw my case. He came down and said, Moses Ritter said, plead guilty to sexual assault. Plead guilty to sexual assault? Is you crazy? When the evidence is already saying that I'm not the one. What evidence you talking about? The semen. Because Dr. Kathy Brown, this is when it became a major issue now about DNA, because my case was the first one that ever discussed DNA being used as a defense tool to authenticate and confirm his innocence. It had never been used like that in the state of Colorado. It was only used by the prosecution to prosecute
Right.
and convict, but never to show innocence.
Right.
My case was the first one. I was the first one ever brought that argument up. So now the evidence, the semen, the H antigen, what I did, I took and wrote this blood bank in Boulder, Colorado. And I asked them, I said, can you send me a blood chart of different blood types that you have? When they send me this chart, I'm looking on the chart, and I see H antigen. And when I look over further, H antigen is an O blood type.
Okay.
Yeah. But see, if somebody say H, you'll never know that they talking about O.
Right.
Where if the expert had said the semen detected on the vaginal swab come from an O blood type person, Moses Eel is a B blood type. The jury wouldn't have never convicted me. But see, she manipulated the evidence and said that the semen detected on the vaginal swab contained the H antigen. She knew what she was saying, but she misled the jury. So when the jury heard that, they thought that she was saying something that matches me.
Right.
And they stayed with that because my attorney never got up and objected or rebutted.
Yeah. And speaking of that too, I was watching one of your interviews, and the attorney that was sitting with you with the last name Klein had mentioned, about consistent versus inconsistent. And that was one thing that really stuck out to me too, because like you were saying about the H antigen, was the way he was using the word consistent versus inconsistent makes it sound like there was still
A
a
possibility,
possibility
that,
that you did it.
yeah, without them coming out saying directly,
Right.
Yeah, but see, that's how lawyers and politicians speak. They speak rhetoric,
Right.
especially when they don't have your best interest, but they make it sound like they got your best interest.
Right.
See, these things I learned over the years, and so now I know how to pick up on it when I see it. And that particular lawyer was the same lawyer that told me, "You a black man in a white man's world." He turned out to be my nightmare. He was my nightmare in disguise, but he was my nightmare by the smile, the hand press,
Right.
the little gift, which was trinkets.
Right.
Oh, Mose, I got this. I don't use this bicycle no more. You could have this bicycle. Now we are people. I'm talking about the so-called black man. They took a lot of things from us, but when it comes to things like being truthful, emotional, genuine, taking, friendship, as something valuable. See, those things, those gestures, it played me. It made me let my defense down, because that's how they played me. And now I understand the statement he also made a little ways down the road. He told me one day, he said, "Moses here," he said, "I'm good at what I do." And when he said that, everything, like I said, I'm an analytical person. When you say things to me, I'm going to analyze it. I may not respond right then, but I'm definitely going to analyze it. And I looked at it and then I said to myself, yeah, you good at what you do. But at that time, see, I was looking at it in support of what he was saying, up until I discovered he had crossed me.
Speaking of crossing you, who is L.C. Jackson?
L.C. Jackson was the perpetrator in this particular crime, and he was the boyfriend of the victim best friend.
Wow.
Yeah. See, they lived next. The girl that I was eventually convicted for lived next door to LC.
Right.
Because LC's girlfriend at that time was the victim's best friend.
Wow. They left that out.
Yeah, they left all that.
They
out.
left that out.
Yeah. And how I came up in the picture, see, everybody in the neighborhood knew LC. He was a gang member. He was part of Crips. And he was kind of buff brother. So by this time, Crips and Bloods got their strangleholds on communities, so people don't want no retaliation. You
Got
know,
it.
all that. So it was hush hush about him. You know, because he had a reputation, right? But he also had a reputation for rape. Because I found out that his first sexual encounter or first sexual assault had occurred in 1984, and it pursued from that day forward, right? So they when it come to the penal system, who has his record, they was very familiar with charges that he had received or was charged with over the years, and what he was charged for, from rape and burglary. Those were the charges that he had. But what happened, see, the victim didn't like my son's mother. So when I came to Colorado, I came into a chaotic environmental setting. Because my ex at that time had already been in Colorado with my son, and they was living in this area, east side Denver, where, like I said, Mexicans and the low lifes and the drugs and all the madness. You know, so my son's mother had already had conflict and neighborhood turbulence with the victim. About a month before I was arrested, or even considered to be subject to an arrest, my ex and the victim got into a scuffle outside, because the victim saw my ex and she got to talking and calling her names and all that, and went to pull her pants down in broad daylight. She went to pull her pants down, underwear and everything, to tell my ex kiss her butt. And when she did that, my ex just got to whipping her. Woo, 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 woo. Drilled her. So I let her whip her. Then after that, I broke it up. You know, me and my ex at that time, we went on back into our apartment, which was a project. Now the victim lived right, like across the street from us. That's how far she lived from us, right? But when we walking back to our apartment, she was saying, "I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you." She kept saying that.
And that's what they were talking about in the interview. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't know that she was meaning, I didn't know what she meant by it, you know, other than I took it as a threat, right? And my ex at the time took it as a threat. She said, "Let me go back over there and whip her butt." I said, nah, everything good. So, fast forward, they had a party that was hosted by the victim's best friend next door. The victim goes to the party, LC in the party, all of them in the party getting high, drinking, all that kind of stuff. In the process of this party, the victim gave LC her key, because now LC hitting on her, you know, and the victim goes over to her house, which was next door. LC come behind her. When he come behind her, And the only reason I know this much is because after he was apprehended, the subject came up. You, the guy, was mentioned in Moses Hill case, right? He don't want to admit to it because he's in there for sexual assault. He just was arrested for a sexual assault on a black woman and her 9-year-old daughter. He raped both of them, and the girl was 9 years old. She was a virgin. He raped that girl, and you know, she was bleeding and everything when the police now came in, because he got away, but he left his semen. And that's how they wound up connecting him to that rape in 2005 because of DNA identification. And then when I seen on the news that he had got caught, I said, damn, let me call the lawyer. Because I had already gotten enough information based on my personal research I was doing throughout the prison, especially with gang members, Crips and Bloods, who had eventually started coming into my program, the More Science Temple of America. Coming into my program, the More Science Temple of America, and these individuals hearing about, you know, my situation, they, man, I know so-and-so that knows so-and-so that knows so-and-so. So we start making these connections, and then I'm starting to get these young gang members that was being recruited into More Science Temple of America. Well, I need y'all to do these particular things for me, make an inquiry, et cetera, and so forth. And so it eventually came out, man, LC is the one that did that.
So crazy. I'm connecting all the dots. That's crazy. How did it get to be that LC ended up sending you that letter? Because it was mentioned that.
Well, after he was arrested for that case I just spoke about,
right?
About the 9-year-old girl and her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. After he was arrested for that, and he saw that they was gonna prosecute him, he wasn't getting out of it. He wrote me a letter. I didn't know the letter was coming because me and the guy didn't know each other. I knew him from a distance.
Right.
You know, but personally, I didn't know this guy, none of that kind of stuff. They had even, at one point in time, they had put me and him in the same cell together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when I first, around about 2 months after I was arrested, he came in jail for burglary. And they ended up putting him in the cell with me. Not the very first day he came in there, about 3 days after that, they put him in a cell with me. And when I found out what cell they was putting me in and I seen him, I said, man, I said, they told me you the one that took and raped Cisco, man. I said, if you raped that girl, man, I said, you got to take your case. So he said to me that night, he said, man, I done been charged with rape before, so I'll just go to court. He never denied it. He said, I'll just go to court. The very next day, they moved me out of the cell. I never seen him no more. When we eventually saw each other again, is when we started going to court. And after he had wrote me the letter in 2012. Now this case happened in 1987. He was in and out the jail, but he had found out that a whole lot of people had or was following me, especially in the Islamic community, So what he would do, he was in different facilities. He would tell people, hey man, when you go to facility so-and-so, get with Brother Moses here. This is what people was coming telling me. So that was starting to show me that he was eventually trying to come out and declare, hey man, that guy didn't do that, I did this. But it was how he was doing it. He was doing it in a roundabout way.
Okay.
Like, that guy, Brother Moses, he a good guy. You when you go over there, y'all should listen to him about it. These kind of reports I was getting from him. So this is how it actually came up, and eventually he wrote me the letter. When he wrote me the letter said, Brother Moses Hill, he said, basically he was saying, you know, what was done in the dark
That's
in
the kind of
1987 now has to come out in the light. He said, I don't know who the lawyers is representing you. He said, but tell them it's time, you know. And the letter was no more than maybe about 5 or 6 lines, about that much long. Wasn't even huge, a big old piece of paper with just that on there. So when I received that, at the time I was in Benton County prison site, and I was playing poker that day, and the officer called my name, said, Moses, you got a letter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm playing poker. When the letter came, I looked at it and saw his name on it. First thing I said to myself, I said, what did he write me for? I didn't even know what was inside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if I knew what was inside at that time, I would have jumped for joy. But I didn't jump for joy until after I opened it and read it.
Right.
I came running out of my cell. I said, I said, boy, I'm going home now. And I called the lawyer, told the lawyer about the letter. He said, send that letter to me. I said, not only am I going to send you the letter, I said, I'm going to send you the envelope. I said, because 9 times out of 10, when he sealed that envelope, he probably licked it.
Mm.
I
Oh,
said,
for
so
DNA,
I
yeah.
said, so his DNA is on it,
Right.
you know. So my lawyer, all right.
Smart. That's smart. I didn't think about that. That's smart.
Yeah, see, I was looking at every way possible to prove my innocence.
Right, because you didn't want it coming back like, oh, it's you know, a forged letter or something
Yeah,
like
because
that.
they kept finding ways to get around it. Especially after I was convicted, the court didn't want to deal with it no more. The prosecution didn't want to deal with it no more. The defense lawyers didn't want to deal with it no more. They wanted me to sit in there and accept that 48 years. I said, man, y'all got to be crazy.
So just to put it in perspective, y'all, he'd already served 25 years. He gets the letter. They sat on it for 18 months before they even wanted to even have the conversation about it. So imagine, he's at like 26 and a half, 27 years by that point. So
Yeah. And, you know, my mother passed away a year before. Well, after he sent me that letter, my mother passed away in 2013. You know, and I was touched by that, but I didn't cry. You know, I said, you know, this battle is going to be a battle fought on behalf of my mother and the injustice that I suffered. Because my mother, in her dying words, she said, son, don't never plead guilty to something that you didn't do. She said, I don't care what you got to go through.
that's your manhood.
Yeah, she said, but you're gonna be set free. She said, but it ain't gonna come on your time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Mom's told me that, that kind of hit me kind of deep, right? Because my time was, I want out now.
Right.
but-
You done did 27 years. Yeah, get me out of here.
Yeah, but she told me, she said, her exact words, she said, son, when it's your time, you will know. So I would play that back in my head, right? Like, what she mean, when it's my time, I'll know.
So she passed in 2013.
Yeah,
So when were you actually set free?
2015. Wow. Yeah, she passed away November 2013. I got out December 2015. I wanted to make it out, but, you know, I didn't because of all the stall tactics, like you
Right.
said. They were stalling, they was angling, how we gonna deal with this,
Mm-hmm.
you know. what if this happened? You know, these are not ignorant people.
Right.
The prosecutor is not ignorant because the fool went to school. The defense counsel wasn't ignorant. The judge wasn't ignorant. Because all of them was in on this conspiracy.
Oh yeah.
You can't have it. You can't have that type of conviction go down without all of them being in cahoots with each other.
Right. And they don't want that getting to light because it shows the whole judicial system is.
And that shows also now that I have a legitimate lawsuit against the state where I'm entitled to compensation because it's a civil rights violation, right? They didn't want that. Nah, Moses, we ain't gonna let you do that. So the way to get around it was to always keep throwing a deal up in my face. Because once I plead guilty, see, that's an admission.
Right.
Whether I'm innocent or not, they was looking at, once we get him to say he did it, the records is sealed.
But with that being said, he maintained his innocence through the entire time. 28 years being incarcerated. He's now free. He's home. Brother Moses L. Thank you for your time.
Yes, it's always a pleasure. There's more to my story than meets the eye. I mean, but this is one of the greatest civil rights violations that ever took place in the state of Colorado.
Let alone in the history of the U.S.
That's right. See, my case is blatant racism, discrimination, injustice, all because of what? Who I am. The same thing was done to our, and I have to put it this way because it's real. What they did to me was no different than lynching me or tying me to a wagon wheel and tar and feathering me, because that is the practice and the behavior in this country who feel like certain peoples is inferior to them. When somebody's inferior to you, you do what you want to do to them. That's why my case is so powerful and so important. Because of what was done to me, I could prove that it was done because of this. Irregardless of what you saying out your mouth, because what you trying to do now is justify what you did. I'm telling you, it ain't no justification. See, so they never wanted me to take the witness stand, because if I took the witness stand, see the things that the public is hearing now, that's what they would have heard. So their thing was, hey, make sure Moses don't get on the witness stand. So the only way I could be deprived of not getting on the witness stand, only two people can govern that. The judge, which he has to have an evidentiary hearing about that, and my defense counsel. So if my defense counsel never say, I'm gonna put my client on the witness stand, I'll never get on there. That's his way of shutting me up. That's the way the court shut me up. They muffled me without literally putting something on my mouth.
And that's what I'm talking about when I say freedom is the debt that all men pay. You know who it is, what it is. Once again, Brother Moses up.
Always a
Thank
pleasure.
you for your time.
Yes, a pleasure.
We
call
out.
me back again. Yeah.
Peace.
All right.
We be going over time. Take it, limits. We be going over time.